Barcelona, respectively. Sandra was also a member of the bronze medal and silver medal winning teams at the 1987 and 1991 Pan Am Games in Havana and Indianapolis. After retiring from her athletic career, Sandra continued to stay close to the Canadian Olympic Committee, having been selected to the mission team at the 1998 Olympic Winter Games to provide legal support for athletes, and was named Team Canada's chef de mission for the 2014 Youth Olympic Games. Sandra continued to strengthen Canada's Olympic movement through her involvement with the COC's legal committee as the Director of Special Projects for the Toronto 2008 Olympic Bid Corporation, and as a member of the Board of Directors and the Chair of the Human Resources Committee with the 2015 Pan Am and Para-Pan Am Games Organizing Committee. Sandra has received numerous awards and accolades for her contributions throughout her career, including the Governor General's Canadian Leadership Conference Award in 2004, as well as she is inducted into the York University Sport Hall of Fame in 2003. Outside of the sport of field hockey, Sandra is a trained lawyer as a graduate of York University and the Osgoode Hall Law School, with over 20 years of experience as a human resources executive, serving renowned corporations including RioCan Management Inc., the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, and Magna. Sandra is now the Chief People Officer with the Canadian Olympic Committee and assumed her role with the COC in November of 2020. In her role, Sandra is responsible for the further evolution of the people strategy for the COC, including diversity and inclusion programs that will continue to reinforce the values and culture of the organization. So I'll pass things over to Shauna now, and she'll begin our Q&A with some moderated questions before the rest of you will have an opportunity to ask as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Victoria. So Sandra, just to start things off, can you describe your journey from the early days of your field hockey career to where you are now?
Great. Thank you. First of all, Shauna, thank you for organizing this. And Victoria, thank you for that lovely introduction, and welcome field hockey community. I'm not sure that I can see all the names, but I do recognize a couple of names, which is nice, nice to see. To answer your first question, Shauna, field hockey started for me back in Scarborough at Lamro Collegiate. We had a fantastic coach who was involved in the Ontario field hockey community and as a referee and international referee or umpire, I guess is what we say in field hockey. Ken O'Connor was very influential, and some of you older folks would remember Ken O'Connor. Thank you. Shout out to LUT 2. That's what comes up. Oh, okay. Oh, I just recognized you. Oh my gosh. You look great, by the way. I didn't even recognize you. Sorry, I had to do that. I just recognized someone I haven't seen in a long time. Anyway, sorry, I digress. So Ken O'Connor was influential in my field hockey career as a coach and mentor, and I'm still friends with Ken today. I learned a lot about not just field hockey, but teammanship and professionalism from Ken starting in high school, and the learning how to work hard, learning a new sport, because field hockey was brand new to me in grade 9, as it is for many Canadians, because we don't start as young as a lot of the European and Asian athletes in elementary school. So that was the foundation for me as an athlete and as a future leader. So I was fortunate to have someone like Ken in my early days, which propelled me into the Ontario field hockey program under Liz Hoffman, and then under Marina Vandermerva in the national program. And at York, that was a huge attraction for me to go to York, is to be coached by a leader like Marina. And I'm lucky enough to still have occasion to see Liz, still very much in Marina's life, and check in every few months. We get together regularly. So I was surrounded by very strong and professional and capable people who instilled huge and lasting values to me that have stayed with me, not just through sport, but through my professional career.
And speaking of your professional career, some very exciting big news came right before the new year, that you were named the Chief People Officer of the COC. A lot of people, and I know some people were asking, what exactly does your current role detail? Like, if you're able to describe a day-to-day basis of what you do as the Chief People Officer for the COC, what does that look like?
Sure. It's a fancy title for someone who heads up the human resources function at an organization. So I am part of the executive team with the Canadian Olympic Committee, and it's a brand new role with the COC. So I get to shape the people and culture strategy for the next little while I'm there, and to influence the training, anything to do with the growth of our employees, compensation, culture. We're very engaged right now in a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy, which is something that a lot of companies have embraced, especially in the last year, given the Black Lives Movement and the highlight around George Floyd in the last year, which is all very interesting, but that's for another conversation, because I could certainly talk about that for a long time. But the COC saw the need to find a different type of leadership in this particular space, not just for the COC, but also to influence the sport community, and in particular the national sport federations, which would filter down to the PSOs across the country.
And it's exciting to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing some great things coming from the COC and what you're able to bring to the table.
Thank you. No pressure there, Shauna.
Don't worry, we got your back. We're here to help any way that we can. When we go back to, because I know your native country is Jamaica, and growing up in Jamaica, netball was very popular during that time frame. So when you came to Canada, why field? Like, why'd you choose field hockey as a sport? Like, what was your draw to field hockey?
My family moved here when I was quite young. So I started kindergarten here in Toronto. So I grew up playing road hockey and wanting to play ice hockey, but my dad wouldn't let me because girls apparently did not play ice hockey, according to my dad. So field hockey was interesting to me because I also grew up playing soccer. And as we all know, it's similar conceptually to soccer. I went to a high school where I didn't know a lot of people. A lot of my friends went to a different feeder high school from our middle school. And I thought it would be a great way to meet people in the fall because I was a cross-country runner. And I thought a team sport would be a good thing. I was a lefty, so I had to learn how to hold the stick properly. I'm sure a few of you might have been lefties, and then you had to make the adjustment to become right-handed. The good thing is, if I were to play hockey today, I could shoot equally strong on my left side and my right side. That will not happen, but so that's why I started field hockey, is really to meet people and make some new friends.
Well, you made a great choice because you had a great career, and we appreciate everything that you have done. And we actually do have a question from a current national team player, Rowan Harris. She asked the question, what was the most important aspect of team culture that you hope the current national team can embody? So was there any aspect that you wish would have been different? It's kind of a two-part question.
You know, we cared about each other. And I think Marina really drove that. we were like a family on the road. You didn't always get along, just like siblings, but you always had each other's backs. And that was an important thing as I look back, because there are people that you knew you wouldn't have a lot in common with if you didn't have them on your team. But because you spent day in, day out when you're on the road, or if you're at a camp in Canada, you would spend 8 hours a day together. It was like a full-time job. Or we would be on the road for months together. You really have to care about the person. You need to care about the person you're passing the ball to. You need to care about the person that you are protecting defensively. So I think that somehow through osmosis, Marina really instilled that value in us. And today I'm still friends with a lot of my teammates. And when we get together or when we connect via right now virtually or phone calls, we tell a lot of great stories, and boy, we get better and better every year. Like I'm more of a rock star today in my mind than I was back then because we do a lot of trash talking. No, in all seriousness, we cared a lot about each other, and that fills me with warmth as I think back.
And it's like while you're like thinking back, and with this being Black History Month, field hockey currently does not have a lot of Black players. And what was your experience like being a Black female athlete, both growing up while playing on a national team? Because I know for certain sports, there wasn't a lot of Black male players or female players with those different NSOs as well.
Yeah, and field hockey, and I think back even to my high school team. I went to one of the most diverse high schools in Scarborough, and Toronto is the most diverse city in the world now. We have over 190 languages and dialects. So I grew up in a field hockey community that was very diverse. A lot of South Asian players, Caribbean players, British, East Asian. We had it in our club system. Nationally, it wasn't as diverse. I don't recall there being another Black female field hockey player during my time. We had South Asian players and East Asian, but it just wasn't a sport that a lot of non-white athletes flocked to at the national level. Club level, which was surprising because you look at the diversity in the club system, or what the diversity was when I played anyway. I don't know what it's like today because I don't play club. It was very diverse, and we had great tournaments in Sunnybrook and Eglinton Flats in Toronto. Certainly Vancouver had them too. And you would attract teams from all over the world that would come and play. And it was a big party. So it surprises me actually that we don't attract more diversity, but we just simply haven't. I had a very positive experience overall. I mean, you're always going to experience people's biases when you travel. And I experienced some things that were negative, but most of the time it was very positive. Traveling with my team, I felt very protected by my team. There were incidents, for example, in '88, we went and we trained in Australia. It happened to be the bicentennial year for Australia, and they were celebrating 200 years, but they excluded their Indigenous population from the celebrations. And being the nerdy kid that I was, I read papers constantly, and I would always pick up an English paper when I was traveling, and I was disappointed to see that, and I took issue with it. And I know I had conversations with my teammates about celebrating some of the bicentennial things when people who looked like me were excluded. So it created a conversation, and I hope some awareness, but it's something that I felt very strongly about and didn't really want to participate in some of the events that we were invited to because people like me weren't included. So that was a negative, but I'll tell you, most of my experiences were beautiful, wonderful, open-minded people that, first of all, lots of people love Canadians. So when we were in Europe, I felt very welcome and very safe. But there were times where I was sure I was the only Black person in a whole town. And you look around and you go, okay, this is different from growing up in very diverse Scarborough. But you get used to it and you adjust, and I always had expectations that I would be treated fairly, and most of the time I was.
Yeah, I could, like myself, clearly working with field hockey for the past 2 years, I have been treated with nothing but the utmost respect, especially not coming from a field hockey background. They've welcomed me with open arms. They've taught me the sport. They've taken the time to, like, you know, embrace me and help me learn more and understand the sport. And right now it's like everywhere I go, I'm like, field hockey. I like to advocate for field hockey because I just think it's a sport that a lot of people don't know about. But if they do know about, it will be something that they'll be very interested in from that aspect.
We have a wonderful community.
Yes, yes, you do. And especially it's like with a lot of the alumni that have been doing stories with Victoria of where are they now and the Throwback Thursdays. It's been great receiving the photos and like people like seeing them and reminiscing over some of the great times that you guys used to have, and the travels as well. Lots of stories around the travels.
Yes.
Speaking of travels, what was your experience? Because you guys were one of the last teams to go to the Olympics for the women's side. And like with the men's getting ready to go to Tokyo, what was your experience at the Olympics in Seoul and Barcelona? Like, what was that experience like as an athlete?
Greatest experience for me. I had been dreaming about being an Olympian since 1976 as a child, watching the Montreal Games and going outside with friends after watching a particular sport that we didn't know existed, like European handball. We fell in love with it. And boxing, we would put socks on our hands and box. So it was fantastic exposure. And I knew I wanted to be an Olympian back then. So to actually achieve it and to walk out with Canada on my back in the opening ceremonies is exhilarating. It still to this day is one of the greatest experiences of my life that I'm really obviously proud of, but that I feel really blessed to have had that opportunity.
And you've also had the opportunity to go to the Pan Ams and also go to the World Cup, I believe, as well. And like, how would you compare those experiences, or how do they differ from one another from those times that you spent in Seoul or Barcelona or Havana or Indianapolis? Like, you've gone to, like, your bio is like amazing, by the way, just reading up all the different places you got to travel throughout your playing career.
Thank you. And you know, every game had its what I would describe as Olympic moment. I mean, the Olympics is the biggest stage for amateur athletes, but the Pan Am Games has its own level of fantastic, just like the Olympics, but it's just a different feeling because it's a segment of the world. And the Pan Ams was kind of special because Jamaica was there, the country I was born in, the Caribbean, a lot more diversity in the sense that you're getting South America, the Caribbean, and North America. So it looks different and feels different. But really, the World Cup for field hockey is the pinnacle, because that's your sport's big event. And when you are in the World Cup, it's equal to making, to the Olympics, but it's focused only on field hockey. So every event had its degree of fantastic in my eyes. The Olympics was just a bit more special because people value the Olympics a little bit more. And so when you talk about the Olympics versus Pan Ams or the World Cup, they can relate to it because they don't necessarily get the coverage of Pan Am or World Cups in a sport like field hockey. But love them all.
Yeah. Do you have like a little memorabilia chest from all of those events that you've gone to with your credentials or anything that you've kept? Like,
oh, absolutely. Boxes of photos. Yes, for you young people, we actually had paper photos at some point. And I have a closet full of tracksuits. So now that I'm working with the COC, when we were working virtually, I will put on one of my old Olympics tracksuits or one of the World Cup tracksuits and go on a Zoom on our video calls, and I'll have to guess what games it was based on the writing on the front. So we were joking about how nice the uniforms and the paraphernalia has become over time. I wore my Seoul jacket the other day, and it's massive. And I think it was just, 88, we liked our clothes big. So two of us could fit in it. So we were joking about the styles and how things have changed. But yeah.
Oh, things have definitely changed over the decades. From the baggy clothes to the skin tight and what they like, or the fitted clothing, as they like to say. Just like everything, sometimes things have to come to an end. Like, at what point in your national career did you realize it was time to move on from the sport? Like, what helped you make that decision?
I think sometimes your body tells you. I had a back injury. Little injuries start to creep in. I'd taken 8 months off with a displaced disc and lots of rehab. Came back from that, and 2 Olympics later and applying for law school, I thought, yeah, I need to finish my education and get out in the working world at some point. So I was happy with a good 11 years. And there are times where you go, oh, I want to get to, another event, and you could keep going and pushing your body. I think my body ended at a good place, and it was a nice transition to focus on my education and moving into the work world.
Well, we actually do have some field hockey players that have expressed interest in law. So it's like what made you pursue law like in that career? And for those athletes who are listening on the call, what advice could you give someone interested in taking that career path?
For me, law was an opportunity to get an education that I had a lot of spring spots. So I could practice law, which I did for a number of years. I was also interested in politics, which I'm involved in peripherally. And you can use it in business. I've been in business more than I've actually practiced law. I actually only practiced law for about 4 years. And then I went into the corporate world and worked in corporations. So I did the business side for most of my career. And it's a great education to pivot from if you like the study of law. There are lots of opportunities. People love to hire lawyers and in different areas. We have the CEO of the COC is a lawyer. We have obviously a lawyer as our general counsel, and me as a lawyer. So half of our team are lawyers, the executive team. So you find that there are opportunities, even if you don't want to practice traditional law. There's lots of opportunities in business, in sport, in medicine, in so many areas. So if someone's interested, I highly recommend. Great education and great foundation to pivot from.
And the law that you practice, is it sport law? Which kind of law did you go down originally?
I did mostly commercial litigation, really boring stuff like mortgage remedies and construction lien and employment law. So it was a variety of stuff that you never talk about at a cocktail party because it's not remotely sexy, but it was good. It was a good living. And then I moved strictly into business.
And I know it's like sport can open up a lot of doors in people's careers, because it has for me, and I know it has for other people as well. What is one opportunity you've had during your professional career that would not have happened or would not have been possible if you didn't play field hockey with the national team and go to the Olympics?
No, I don't know that it wouldn't happen, but I'll tell you that any interview I've ever had, people want to talk about my Olympic experience and my national team experience. And it has allowed me to be a very, a person that brings diverse experiences to the table, whether it be at the leadership table or a board table. So I know that board opportunities have come my way, in particular with the Olympic bids that we've had in Toronto, the Pan Am bid, being invited to sit on those boards, plus some corporate board work that I'm now doing. A lot of it has come my way because people want, obviously, like my background, my professional background, but then they love the side that, the fact that I have had the opportunity to play a team sport and being part of a team and understand teammanship in a practical way that others may not have ever had in their lives.
No, thank you for answering those questions. I'm actually going to turn it back over to Victoria, who's going to see if there's any questions from people from the floor.
Thank you, Shauna. So at this time, if you have a question that you would like to ask Sandra, you can use the raise hand function in Zoom and just raise your hand that way in our virtual setting. And then I'll call on you and you'll be able to unmute yourself and you'll be able to ask your question directly to Sandra.
Or if you can't find the raise hand motion, you can just put your hand up and we can see you and call on you that way as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, she's on mute.
Victoria, did we unmute her?
Yeah, Katrina, you have to. Oh. Oh, Katrina. Oh. Maybe someone is going to.
Yeah, we only have the ability to click that ask to unmute. So that should come up though to be able to unmute there.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Well, this is the second time today I've had to say this on a call. I am an idiot with computers. You have
No,
just
you're not.
how
You're
bad
not.
I am. It
How are
never
you?
got any better.
Yes,
dear.
your voice.
Yes, I know. If I thought, if nothing else, that you would recognize. Oh dear. Oh, let's I did it again. I don't know.
You're still on. You're good.
Oh, I'm good because you disappeared. As I said, I touched things and it all goes away. I was going to ask you, you seem to have done a lot of really good jobs. Did you sort of think about that when you were going through them all? Or did some of them sort of come together?
You know, and that's a great question. I actually have moved probably more than the average bear, but I developed an expertise in change management. So organizations where they, for example, are in a merger or an acquisition state, For example, at Magna International, we were buying plants all over the United States, Mexico. We were growing in China. So I was spending a lot of time going into the plants that we were purchasing and what we called at the time magnetizing. So I learned that spending 10 years at Magna, and I was responsible for North America and Asia. So developed a bit of an expertise in that. And when I left, my resume was starting to smell a little bit like someone who knew something about going into an organization and fixing and changing culture and that sort of thing. So so opportunities came my way, and so I was fortunate that way. A lot of hard work, though, Katrina. A lot of hard work, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And that's one of the great things that sport teaches you, is you put your head down and you get it done.
That was a great question.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, I think she's back on mute, but. Oh, okay, we'll have to come back to Katrina, but I think Sarah has a question.
Yes, Sarah does have her hand up, so Sarah, you can take the floor.
Hi, Sandra. It is wonderful to hear your experiences. I'm so glad that we have this opportunity with you. I have a question from the perspective of, as a person in a coaching position, as a person in administrative positions, we're always trying to position our sport as a set of life lessons for our athletes, right? Things that they're learning, things that they're developing as they take forward into their career. And I'm thinking more from, the high school perspective, and then leading into whether it's national or university, whatever that aspect is. What were some of those lessons, some of those key things that you learned coming up through the sport, but maybe before you even got to nationals, that you think helped shape you into the career you're in now, into the woman you are now, that we can emphasize to our young athletes?
Sure. Great question, Sarah. Thank you. When I started playing field hockey in grade 9, we had 2 teams, an A team and a B team. And I made the B team. And I think that is an important thing, because then I went on to 2 Olympics, and I made the B team because I held the stick on my left side until I learned to put it on the right side. And I was fast, and sometimes I would overrun the ball. So I'm giving you this awkward image of me, which I was. But what I learned, and my coach was fantastic at, and coaches ultimately play a big role in this, is the patience when you see potential. And that is such an important thing, is to feed potential and to work with potential and give athletes the attention even before they look great, and break that down for them and show them what they could be. And I think that makes a huge difference, and that made a huge difference in my life, that someone took the time to take me by the hand and say, yeah, I can work with you. And then as I got better, I wanted to be that technician that would hit 100 penalty corners every practice. And I think Marina actually had us up to 400 at some point, but that's a whole story. But it gave me the discipline to want to be better, because someone saw that I could be better and believed I could be better, and then I believed it. Those were huge lessons that I was able to take with me at every level, whether, starting back from high school to provincial to national.
Amazing. Thank you, Sandra. That is fantastic information. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Emily with a question.
Go ahead, Emily.
As an athlete, like in the high school perspective, is there anything that you would like give as advice, like moving forward in my field hockey career?
And I take it, Emily, you're playing field hockey in a high school? Any aspirations for provincial or a different level or university?
I currently play for like Ontario also, but yes, I'm looking for universities too.
Okay, congratulations. That's great news. The advice I would give you, if you love it and you want to have a trajectory that moves up, is put in the time. Putting in the time on the technical, the tactical will come. The fitness, anything that is the foundation to give you the goods to be able to play with your teammates well is time well spent. So put in the extra time and you'll reap the benefits.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, Sarah, is your hand up or is that, oh, that was before, okay.
Go
I
ahead,
think,
Caitlin.
Caitlin?
Sorry, I don't have the raise a hand function as a host, I guess. But Sandra, it's really great to meet you and hear your story. And as a young female athlete myself, it's always encouraging to hear the stories of other women as we move through sport, but also through life and career and school. And I know for myself, transitioning from the university setting and moving into a professional career, I also remember going through that, moving from high school to university can be really challenging, and especially on athletes, as you kind of, for some athletes, lose that identity of an athlete as you maybe leave your university career or your club team or your high school team. Do you have any advice for athletes or in general as you move from one stage of life to another, whether that be professional or education or even just a change in scenery like moving? What would you give to maybe your younger self or future athletes? Thank you.
Yeah, change is always difficult. And for some, it's even more difficult. You think about the bonds you make in high school, and then you leave all of these people. And when you look back, I'm amazed how many friends from high school I'm still connected with. But you know, anytime you transition to those milestone times in your life, that it's a bit of a hurdle. And having good supports, whether it be your family or close friends, to talk with about the challenges is very real. And I think it's important to have people you can talk to about how you're feeling, but to have escapes like club sport. If you're leaving university sport, get involved with club, get involved with meetup. If you're in a new city where you can learn a new sport or join a team, because the camaraderie that you build with others is important, especially if you're coming from a team sport like field hockey or any other team sport, because you miss that. And you need to have something to fill the gap, I think. And I moved to Calgary for a couple of years for work and knew a few people in the sport community. So I had some friends, but I had to make net new friends for the 2 years I was there. And I did that at a later point in my life. And, you know, you're set in your ways. You have your close friends and family in Toronto, and then you move across the country to a new place. I deliberately got involved in activities, started taking cross-country ski lessons, and started snowshoeing with groups. And I was this close to getting a new puppy, which was probably smart I didn't, because I was busy working a lot. But that really helped the transition for me for such a big change. and keeping my great friends who were a great foundation for me back home, speaking with them virtually and on the phone helped. But yeah, that transition is really important. That's a good thing to point out, Caitlin, because sometimes we don't realize the impact that change like that has on our lives.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing.
My pleasure. I see Grace has a question.
Go ahead, Grace.
Hi, Sandra. Thank you so much for that informative session and for sharing your experiences. I just wanted to follow up on one thing that you mentioned. So you said that there's this disconnect between the club level and the national level in terms of having people of color at the forefront, especially in field hockey. After going through both your playing and professional careers and now working in HR very closely, is there anything you can possibly attribute to this hurdle? We talk a lot about EDI, but is there anything that organizations or people in particular can do to champion these marginalized groups?
You know, I think that when I look back on athletes that I thought had talent, but for whatever reason, either didn't try out provincially, which is a start. I think a lot of it was around access. And I grew up in working class Scarborough, came from a working class family. A lot of my friends in my high school were very diverse and also a real mixed middle class and working class. But I think it came down to access. Field hockey is not an inexpensive sport. And I think it's even more expensive now with new technology and sticks, but sport in general is expensive. And it's become very elitist. And when you look at those who play sports like ice hockey, even soccer, to join a club, to pay for 3 kids to play soccer. And then if you make a rec team, it gets more expensive and no one's covering it but the parents. So if you don't have the ability to pay for your child, access becomes a problem. And so one of the things we're very aware of, certainly at the Canadian Olympic Committee, is to focus on the issue of access to improve diversity, because access doesn't start at the Olympic level, it starts at the grassroots level. And if you don't have access at the grassroots level, and I know Sean is very aware of this and has done a lot of work in her career, you're not going to get the diversity later on when you're at the rep level, provincial and national. And that's the problem. So, what I noticed is, yes, we had diversity at the club level, but some of those athletes didn't necessarily have access.
Thank you.
So Sandra, one of the questions I wanted to, because I know some of these girls might be shy to ask a question, if they don't make a national team or a provincial team, what other opportunities are there for them to still get involved at the Olympic level or international level in the sport to still represent the country?
Well, we have officiating, we have administration, and I'll be honest, I'm not as close to field hockey as I used to be, but certainly now there's professional leagues. Certainly in Europe, I'm not sure about the US, but I know a lot of our players have gone on to play in professional leagues for certainly our men and our women. And what a wonderful concept that you can get paid to do what you love. But if those things aren't options and you want to stay involved at some level in field hockey, certainly there's officiating and administrative. And even if it's not field hockey, there is administration in at the provincial, federal level in sport in general. And of course, there's government too. Oh, I think Katrina. Okay, you'll have to off mute, Katrina, if you want to.
Once, woohoo! You were chatting there a little bit about officiating. I mean, that's what I did, and I did it till I was 60. But one of the advantages of being the captain and being the umpire, I was in high schools, all the high schools. So I saw all the kids. So if they wanted to play, I would invite them all over. And some of those kids ended up spread up all over the place. But I mean, I loved it. It's a great thing to do. And it's great. You get paid for it now. And you can pat me in the head, because when I started umpiring, you didn't get paid. But you do.
Did you ever give me a yellow card?
I gave you a red once in your life. I've never been so horrified in my life at you making me do that. You lost your temper. You did. You just lost your temper. That was all.
Wasn't indoor, was it?
Yes, it was.
Okay, I think I remember that. I think I remember that. Yes. Not my greatest moment.
Yes.
Look away, kids. Look away.
Look away. You should come with us. Nomads have a Christmas do. We get together once a year. So would you mind if I gave you a call when we get started up again?
I would love it. I would love it.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining.
Oh, it was marvelous. Thanks, darling.
Sarah, go ahead.
Thinking ahead to your role with the Canadian Olympic Committee, knowing, you know, that we're leading into Tokyo, and then looking ahead, you know, the winter and then the following summer, what do you see as some of the challenges and possibly some of the huge opportunities for Canada from an administrative standpoint, right? From your position on building this Canadian Olympic team going forward?
We are in, and I'm sure we're tired of hearing this word, unprecedented times. But literally, we've never had back-to-back games 6 months apart. So we as an organization are putting on the Tokyo Games in July, and then 6 months later, we're off to the Winter Games in Beijing. That's huge, heavy lifting. And it's exhausting for the team, because you're away a lot, first of all, but you're constantly preparing for the games, and it actually takes years. You know, it's fascinating to me to have been involved in sport as an athlete, and then knowing a little bit about the way the games work. But then when you're actually working for the organization that's putting it on, you see every aspect. And I have such an appreciation for the seamless movement of flying athletes across the world, getting them accredited into the village, you know, showing up for the opening ceremonies and then safely home to their families. It's yeoman's work. It really is a lot of heavy lifting. So for us, we are always, you know, we go through a cyclical game cycle, and we have high turnover every 4 years at the COC, because people get exhausted from being on the road for so long. And what I'm learning is we need to build a bullpen to make sure we can transition and quickly pivot to get ready for the next quad. And now with the games that are back-to-back, 2 years later, we have Paris. And in between that, we have Pan Am Games, possibly a junior Olympics. So for us, small but mighty team, we have to make sure we have the right people in a pipeline ready to fill spots and ready to learn very quickly and run with it. So those are great opportunities. And one of the things that, and Sean has enlightened me with some of the work she's doing at the sport program level at colleges, but I'm getting involved with some of the sport programs across the country to ensure that we're getting a nice feeder system of interns that are learning with us and are ready to join the COC as we go through these cyclical periods after usually a few games. And we're going to start paying our interns, something that we've not done in the past. So that will start when we get the program up and running as of September.
Again, if you have a question, you can just raise your hand. Yeah, Deborah, go ahead.
Is this being recorded and will it be available to watch again?
Yep, it will be. It should be up by the end of the week, and then we'll have it. It'll be shared in the newsletter on Friday, so then all of the members in FHO will be able to access it from there.
It was really good. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks for joining, Deborah.
I have a question for you, Sandra. So as you've mentioned a couple of times throughout this call that you've become a little bit more like disconnected, or you've stepped aside from field hockey in a sense. But from your conversations, or still being a little bit connected, where do you see field hockey going, both at a club level, maybe even at a provincial level, and then nationally, maybe even globally? Where do you hope to see field hockey continue to grow?
Well, I was saddened to see our young women just miss out on qualifying. And I would love to see our women back on qualifying for an Olympic Games. They worked so hard and they came that close. And I know that, you know, I was lucky enough to come from a women's program that in the early days, fitness was new, and Marina brought fitness to the sport internationally. And then all the athletes became fit internationally. But we didn't have the skills that the Germans and the Dutch had. What we had was fitness. And that's how Marina knew we could win. We ran them into the ground, literally. And as we built the program, we developed better technique. If we start at a younger age, the problem is we still start in high school, I believe, in most jurisdictions. And if field hockey was started at a younger age, like soccer is, it might, you know, we would compete on the world stage a little bit better. Part of our challenge right now, too, is when we played field hockey, soccer was not an Olympic sport. Soccer is still one of the most popular sports. And so we're competing against a population that is picking up soccer because now that's attractive. Ice hockey became an Olympic sport. So I think field hockey needs to keep pushing, because it's a bit of it's a tough situation with the way funding works too. If you don't have the funding, sometimes that issue about access starts to play a role with not getting enough athletes or the right athletes competing for the team, because it's the athletes who can afford to pay to go away on an international tournament, rather than athletes who might be equally as talented but can't afford it. So, you know, the way the Own the Podium works and Sport Canada's funding works, unless you're at a certain level, you're not going to get the karting funding and other funding. And of course, there's sponsorship to speak of. So I would love to see us make it back to a level where we are getting the right amount of funding so that we have more athletes to choose from in our sport.
Yeah, Katrina, one more.
Oh,
You're
I
on
think
mute again. And then Lori will pass things over to you.
Okay.
Sorry, is it my turn? Yeah.
Yeah, Lori, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I know it's supposed to wrap up in a couple minutes, and this is probably bigger than 2-minute discussion, but I'm just wondering, from a diversity and inclusion perspective, what's the most significant change you've seen in sport? And then what do you think is the most important thing for us to focus on? I'm an official person. I'm an official. I'm working on development. What do you think we should be looking at for a diversity and inclusion perspective?
I think the great thing is we, in the last year, and it's at the professional sport level, people took a stand. And when professional athletes suddenly take a stand, there's a ripple effect, and it cascades down to amateur. It cascades through all of sport. So when you have large organizations like the NBA, the NFL, who prior to didn't allow any type of posturing like kneeling, and then suddenly it becomes acceptable. Awareness is a wonderful thing. So I think in any sport, once we create awareness, and I think that's what's happened over the last year, is great awareness has happened, mostly because we've all been home and we've been glued to TVs and we were able to watch it. That's frankly, a huge reason why we paid attention. And lucky enough that DEI became a thing that people suddenly cared about and are doing things about. My lived experience is I've always cared about it. I've had to care about it as a person of color, as a woman. And the fact that we're now aware allows us to start to adjust our behaviors and our actions, and to start to develop muscle memory around those things so that we don't have to think about them anymore. We just do the right thing and we behave differently. That takes time. And it really is important to teach awareness if you care about it and if you want to move the needle in this space. And if you want to be an ally, then you have to be a teacher. You have to listen. You have to be patient and allow people to tell their truths and have the courage to believe that that is their truth, even if it's not yours, and to make a difference in the way you respond to things so that people see that you are trying, even if you're not part of a racialized group. And that will make a difference. And sport needs that, because when you look at the makeup of Canada, especially for those of us who live in very diverse cities like the Toronto area, the Montreal area, other cities are becoming more diverse like Calgary and Vancouver. You need to be aware and to bring people in, and inclusive leadership requires that type of behavior. And if you're an officiating and a coach or athletes, I think we need to embrace that. I think I've lost where Lori is now, but oh, there you, okay, great. You didn't have your photo up before. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Figured if I was talking to you, I should put it up. Thank you for
Thank
that.
you. You're welcome.
Well, with that, I'll pass things over to Shauna just for a couple last words, and then we'll close out this event together.
Sandra, on behalf of Field Hockey Ontario, thank you so much for taking some time out today. We do look forward to seeing you at events in the near future when we do get back onto the field. And of course, I know we have so many of our athletes and coaches and umpires, or even our board members. I know myself as an administrator with the rest of the FHO staff would love to just even pick your brain once in a while, or potentially even do this again next year, having a round table just to learn more about your experience and how we can grow as an organization. So again, thank you for taking the time out. We do look forward to seeing you in the near future, and hopefully you might rock some of your retro FHO gear so we can kind of see what that looks like back in the day.
Thanks, and I would be happy to, and I'll come out and play if Katrina will come out and umpire.
Oh.
There you go. Thank you very much. And thank you for your wonderful questions and taking the time on your evening. I really appreciate it. And happy Black History Month.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
So you and Katrina need to connect to go to that
Yes,
that dinner.
I can do that.
There you
No
go.
problem.